Welcome back to Boys and Ghouls Film Review. I'm your host, Sarah Stephenson. This is my co-host, Mike Stephenson.
Hi guys.
And tonight we're doing something a little bit different.
A lot different, if you ask me.
Yeah, we should have done this much later on last year, but
Earlier on, anyway.
Things kept moving around a lot. So tonight we'll be reviewing the Thief of Bagdad, the 1924 version.
The silent one.
Yes, it's been a long time, and I've been thinking of doing silent movies for quite some time, as you may or may not know, but know that I'm a big fan of silent films, and and this one in particular because I like Douglas Fairbanks, who plays the hero in the story.
Yeah, but as I'll talk about later on, this is rather a special one as well.
Yes.
Yeah, for I wouldn't say uniqueness, but for its time and everything else.
Yeah. For its time back then, Douglas Fairbanks not only is an actor, he is also a stuntman.
He did all his own
stunts.
all
his own stunts.
He was very athletic.
He never had a stuntman working on the production.
He did all actually, I don't think they used a lot of stuntmen back in those days. The actors did their own stunts.
True, they did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's the name? Buster Keaton, good example. He used to do all his own stunts, and he used to do some really dangerous looking things, and going, whoa, that could go really bad.
Yeah.
But he did all his own stunts.
Yeah,
So
fortunately, dear old Douglas here, Dougie, he's actually a very fit fella.
Didn't you say he actually opened a gymnasium or something or other? Or?
No, that was someone else. That was a different actor. I was speaking of.
Oh, okay, yeah. Steve Reeves.
So yeah,
Steve Reeves.
Steve Reeves. He also did the Thief of Bagdad
a lot
later on in say.
60s,
let me see. I'm checking here my facts. He did it
64.
in 1961.
61, yeah.
That was a few years later.
Old Steve Reeves movie.
Yeah.
You know,
I should mention that this movie made way for a few remakes along the way, using
and different versions of it, like in different languages. I mean, the names were sort of corrupted as well, but yeah, it's still a Thief of Bagdad story.
Yes, and still, you can still find the videos on Amazon. So.
Actually, I was going to say that later on. You can still get this through Amazon as a rental or a purchase or on eBay, so it's still a popular movie.
Yeah, another remake I like to bring to you guys is the 1940s one that was had Sabu and a young kid actor who played the Thief of Baghdad. Although he was, but this story was a little different from this one we're talking about.
Well, Sabu was the main star in that one, but he was the street rat for the guy who became the prince.
Yeah. So that one was a different story. They just borrowed the title, if you will.
Yeah, it's still a Thief of Bagdad, but they changed it. It's still love interest and everything else, and some naughty guys running around.
Yeah. If you want to look for a remake that can relate to this one, I would think the 1961 one would be a better, grasp of the similar story a little.
Yeah, I think they borrowed the same sort of storyline. Yeah. Anyway,
so let's get back to.
I'll get back into producing and directing and stuff like I normally do.
Yeah. So let's get down to this. So who produced, direct, and screenwriter and all that stuff?
Believe it or not, Douglas Fairbanks produced this movie.
Yeah, he put up the money for it.
He acted in it, and he wrote the story. Yes, you didn't know one, did you?
I didn't know that.
Now, it's directed by Raoul Walsh, and the screenplay by Ahmed Abdullah and Lotta Woods.
Wow.
Now, the budget and box office, I don't know whether it was for its time or what it's worth now. I would say it looks like it was what it cost back in those days. And it was $1.1 million to make. Now, we're going back to 1924.
Many years ago. I would never think we would find a budget for this one.
Well, lucky. I do dig around. But the point is that if this is real, that would have been a damn expensive film for its day.
True.
Yes, it's even by
And
today's standards, it's not to sneeze at.
and
But
an awesome thing about this movie, it was filmed say under 35 days of filming time.
yeah, it wasn't a fast. Yeah, it wasn't a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, it's being on a sound stage. It does make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and back then, you didn't rely too heavily on the what they said too much.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of location shoots for it. They did some, maybe, to get some street sort of things happening, but the rest was soundstage.
Yeah, and the rest of the time they didn't really rely too much on too many shooting,
Yeah.
parts of it. Most of it did a lot of wide angles, maybe a few mid shots here and there, and maybe a few close-ups
They did
here
some,
and there
yeah.
if they're relevant to the
We're
story.
going to kissy.
Yes, again, that's relevant.
Now, I want to go through a couple of things loosely before Sarah gets into telling the story. That was obviously taken from 1001 Nights, the Arabian Nights Tales, about a thief. And the Caliph in Baghdad. Well, it always goes around that.
Yeah,
And even Aladdin's based on that sort of
from
thing.
the 1001 Tales from Arabian Night Tales.
Yeah. Anyway, in '66 it was selected. In 1996, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
Wow.
So, Douglas Fairbanks considers to be his favourite of all of his films, according to his son. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was also an actor, as you're probably well aware. Now, the imaginative gymnastics suited the athletic star, whose cat-like, seemingly effortless movements were as much a dance as gymnastic. He was a very fit man.
Yeah, he wasn't just an actor. He was also a stuntman.
But here we go. Along with his earlier Robin Hood in 1922, the film marked Fairbanks' transformation from genial comedy to a career in swashbuckling roles, and this is one of them.
So Douglas kind of made the he kind of made the headway for action heroes.
Yeah,
If you're looking for a reason why we have have action heroes, the ones that are ordinary people or not ordinary, just
everybody wants a hero.
Well, Douglas is pretty much the guy that inspired that generation of actors.
Yeah. I've got one more little thing to say before Sarah takes over. The Thief of Baghdad is now widely considered to be one of the great silent films and Fairbanks' greatest work. So that's the reasons why we're doing this movie.
Yeah, this was probably one of the first ever Douglas Fairbanks movies I watched and then I started getting into it by watching Robin Hood,
with Zorro.
And then I watched Zorro.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the Three Musketeers yet, but those three movies were pretty much my favourites.
But he's done very good. I mean, he's a very talented man, and I think his son got into acting.
I heard about that.
Douglas Fairbanks Jr.
And I read somewhere that Douglas was also friends with Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
Meaning they were both in the same...
buddies.
Yeah, meaning they probably met from time to time and hanged out a little bit.
May have worked for the same studio or come across each other at the awards.
Well, bear in mind, guys, this was a small studio before it expanded and grew and became so big.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll go quickly through the list of actors. I forgot to do that. Okay. Douglas Fairbanks, he plays Ahmed, the Thief of Baghdad.
Ahmed.
Now, a guy called Snitz Edwards plays his little evil offsider. He's not really evil; he just looks evil, He's they are criminals. They're street people, Now, Charles Belcher, he plays the holy man and the narrator of the story. There is a written narration anyway.
A written narration anyway.
It's a silent film after all.
Bear in mind, it is silent.
He was telling the story at the beginning of it and stuff.
In the opening prologue, you see a holy man telling the story to a young village kid and all stuff.
Anyway, now this is my favourite bit. Julianne Johnston plays the princess.
She's pretty.
I look at some of the older actresses and I say, well, the style's different by today's standard, yada, yada, yada. Actually, this woman, Julianne Johnston, by today's standards, is a very attractive, beautiful woman too. So she has what I call a universal look which transcends decades. Actually, along with Anna May Wong, who played the Mongol slave, she and some of the other girls who played the handmaidens, they look pretty damn fine too. So they had a look about them which didn't say, "Oh, this belongs in the 20s." Yeah, they just had those nice. I don't know what sort of looks you call it. I'd say a universal look about them, not so period or anything, which is nice.
Yeah.
But here we go. I won't go on the too much. Brandon Hurst plays the Caliph.
That's the
Now,
Sultan.
most of the Caliphs in these movies are dingbats.
Yeah, see, in the last two movies I mentioned, the 1940s one and 1961 one, they portray the Sultan as a bit of a dim-witted twit up here.
Either a young guy who is just a twit or an old guy who's got dementia. That sort of stuff. But yeah, he played. He wasn't as bad as the other ones, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess that kind of inspired when they did Aladdin. They made the Sultan in that a little bit vague and a little bit toy infuses.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. But he wasn't as bad as the other ones, but they always make him just a little bit. I can't see the forest for the trees. How wise are you running a town or a country or something or other, and you don't know what to have for breakfast? Now, I'm sorry, but
yeah. So.
Anyway, do you want to take on and tell the story now?
Yes, I will. So this begins in Baghdad, no doubt.
What a great place for it.
And our thief at, what's the name again?
Bruce. No, Ahmed.
Ahmed is stealing per usual. He even steals a special magic rope that allows you to climb high, tall buildings in a single bound. Does that sound familiar? Yes,
What's
I know.
You see, those fakers you see in the bazaars and the old movies where the old Indian rope trick. And that's another point too.
Yeah.
It's Arabia. Not Indian.
Yes, anyway, it doesn't matter. So,
sorry.
matters not. So
Carry on.
So, he and his associate then hear that the princess who's having her latest birthday, is going to select a husband who will rule beside her in Baghdad.
And Ahmed thinks, I'm going to break in there and steal some jewels and stuff.
Yes, he does. He eventually uses the rope and he gets in. And when he's about to steal some of the treasures, well, just so you know, the treasures are actually gifts, offerings from princes from far away who are wanting the princess's hand in marriage. So back to the present. So
I'd rather have the rest of her. She can keep the hands.
So anyway, before he tries to snag away the treasures, he kind of hears some music coming from the princess's bedchamber. Some of the ladies who were her servants were playing some music to send her off to sleep and then when the girls head off on their merry way, he comes in and he sees the princess and he cannot get away.
He's got the hots for her.
Yeah, he couldn't. He gets closer and closer, and at one point he does is in the same
same frame with her.
Same frame with her, and he even steals a shoe. And when he does get away, eventually his
evil offside says, "Where's all the treasure?" And he's holding up a shoe.
Yeah.
It wasn't even made of gold leaf or anything. It was just a shoe.
Yeah.
And he's offside going, "Well,"
Huh?
and then dawns on him, "Oh no, he's in love. Oh, what a waste."
Yeah. Soon enough, the princes arrive, and I'll tell you guys whom we are expecting. One prince is from Persia, a very big, chunky type man.
When he sits around the house,
Yes.
he sits around the house.
And one is from, what's his name? Prince of Indies, I think it was. Very serious
so, yeah.
and in his mid-40s
An arrogant man.
type
Not bad looking, but very, very arrogant. Yeah.
And finally, the Prince of the Mongols, I think.
Mongols.
Yes.
Yeah. up around Tibet, I think, somewhere there.
Yeah, and a very
Mongolia.
sinister, creepy-looking man.
Very oriental.
Yes, and he's not, and he's bent on having Baghdad by lunchtime.
Well, it's in the bag, Dad.
Yeah, and he thinks that once he gets the princess's hand, it'll be a double fold for him.
Well, he said, I can go in there, I can take it by force, or I can actually go there and marry the princess, and I'll get it anyway. But if I don't get the princess, I'm still here, and I'll bring my troops in, I'll just take it anyway.
And take her off.
He was easy one way or the other.
Yeah.
Easily satisfied.
Yes, eventually, Ahmed and his associate, they find out about this, and they suggest that they go into the palace, pretend to be that Ahmed's a prince.
Prince of the seven, well, what is it?
Seven seas.
The Isles and the seas and the seven palaces. Or, some really weird titling. And what?
Yeah.
Just say, I'm from such and such brother.
Again, doesn't matter. So, moving on, they steal some nice trinkets from the marketplace, fancy satins, jewelry, you name it.
Yeah.
And they walk in there. Meanwhile, the princess was talking to a wise woman, I don't know, who prophesizes the most likely person she's going to marry. And she just says that whoever touches the rose in the garden,
the rose tree,
tree, will be her ideal suitor.
And that's where the suitors are going to come in and park their horses and camels and stuff. Yeah, and
soon enough, all the suitors arrive, and each one we're given a look over, and the princess is gagging. She's gagging like this.
Yeah, blowing chunks,
Yeah,
and
eventually she sees that Prince.
He's the last one who comes in.
He is
He's a honey.
She prays that this will be the
I
likely
hope he
man.
touches my rose bush.
But dear old one of her servants, who's a traitor, who's also a Mongol, tells the Mongol's prince associate that if the princess is superstitious, and if you touch the rose bush,
she'll marry you.
Then she'll be yours.
So Ahmed's horse gets scared by a bee, and he gets thrown into the rose bush.
Yeah, crash.
Funny.
It was funny, especially the music they portray in that scene.
Yeah, actually.
That's what I like about the silent movies. They often portray some funny music in this.
We will rock it. No.
Something really interesting that sets the mood.
Well, that does.
Anyway,
highway to hell. No.
So the princess is thrilled when she sees Ahmed finally has touched the rose bush. Well, technically, he just fell into the rose bush.
He filled all roses, didn't he?
Ouch, ow. Yeah, but he eventually gets one of the roses, and him and his associate, they pour on some sleeping draft stuff, whatever it is, in hopes of her sniffing it and passing out. But anyway...
Hey, a bit like Rohypnol.
Yeah, so anyway, he heads up onto a balcony, does a sort of a Robin Hood thing, if you watch Errol Flynn.
What, all Robin Hood Men in Tights?
No, Errol Flynn.
Oh, okay. The other one.
Yeah. So he meets the princess, and at first she acts all shy, but eventually she tells him about how that he's destined to be her husband and all that.
The juices are flowing now.
Yeah, and several times he tries to give her gets her to sniff the rose, but he has a second thoughts about it, and he ends up palming the rose unknown to the audience.
And he took the rose back, so he wouldn't do it dishonorably.
Yeah.
He's really a nice guy.
Eventually, the Sultan calls all the princes to his chambers, and he announces to them that the princess has selected her suitor, and she gives a special ring that hints which one's going to be the likely suitor. And he hands it over to Ahmed and says, "Congratulations, you are going to be our next sultan." Yada yada yada. But Ahmed is feeling a rather guilty conscience now because he realized he's bluffed and he won't be able to provide anything for the princess.
He can't afford a palace.
Yeah.
Can't afford a house.
Even though he's covered with Baghdad being his the kingdom he's going to
he
run.
He was going to get the palace anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
and all
still,
good stuff. Yeah.
he's bluffing, and he doesn't have anything to offer her. Eventually,
I can think of something.
the Prince of Mongols gets wind that this guy is no prince, and he tells the Sultan this, and this is where the Sultan gets really angry, and he calls out the guards.
Guards.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. And meanwhile, Ahmed comes clean to the princess, telling her that he's no prince, and he's lower than a peasant. He's a thief.
Yeah.
And
she
the princess,
says, "No, you're not. I think you're really cute. And
Yeah,
I've
and
got the hots for you."
And when the
whatever.
guards start coming, she begs him to go because she loves him and doesn't want to see him getting in
That's a quick
danger.
romance, hey folks.
And anyway, eventually the soldiers drag Armin to the Sultan, and they beat him with 1,000 whips. Bam, 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 bam,
Well,
bam.
not 1,000 whips.
Well, it was painful. Anyway, the princess then calls her servant and tells her to give some pearls that she has to each of the guards in the dungeon to release Armin into the street.
Sneak out, yeah.
Of course, eventually it works, and Ahmed is still a little sad that what he has happened, and he wants to be changed.
He wants to be a normal man.
Yeah, a good.
Well,
So
not normal.
he ends up heading to the mosque,
Rich.
and he meets the wise man we mentioned, and the wise man says that he'll. In order to get happiness, you have to earn it, and this is the message to this movie. It's sort of explains.
You don't get given it.
Yeah.
You got to earn it. Which is fair enough.
Eventually, the Sultan demands the princess to choose her next suitor. And unfortunately, she at first doesn't feel, I don't feel like I want to choose anyone. And then the Sultan says, if you don't choose anything, I'm going to choose, and it's going to be my decision. And you have to live with it and love it.
I hope her father's very happy.
Eventually, her
husband,
servant tells her, if maybe you could buy some time, get them to go on a quest and stuff like that. And the princess suggests this to the Sultan, says that to get these princess to go out into the world and find the most rarest treasures they can find.
And bring back, and whoever brings back the rarest one.
Yeah, by the seventh moon. This is really relevant.
Yeah, 7's a very mystical number.
Yeah, 7 moon means 7 days, if that's the word for it.
I thought 7 moons were 7 people with the pants down.
I'm not going to answer that one.
Okay, sorry.
So, anyway, moving on. Eventually, Ahmed hears about this, and he heads on his way to seek a rare treasure of his own, too. And
I have a rare treasure.
Your niece and nephew. We know.
Well, I got 2. They're so cute. Little Amelia, my darling, he's turning 6 in August, and my little man, Mark, is turning 4 in June. They're 2 treasures.
True.
Yeah. And Sarah loves them, and I love them, and
yeah.
But it makes me feel old being a grandpa. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Sorry.
So anyway, all the priests, the princes, they meet at a special location.
Caravanserai.
Yeah, and they all agree to come back to that place and then head back together with their treasures. Eventually, they do go on their separate quests, and the Prince Mongol sends spies to both the 2 princes to see what their kind of gifts they're going to get.
We get a bit of feedback.
Yeah. The first one, the Prince of Indies, he finds a special crystal that allows you to see the future.
Yeah, it's like a magic ball.
Not the future, just sees anything you want
to see. So it's a big statue. It's like a big, like a crystal ball that a medium uses, and it's about like one of those. And you can look in it and say, oh, I can see her, I can do this, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the next prince, the Prince of Persia, he gets a flying carpet.
And I mean, I mean, crikey, he didn't even take it for a test drive.
Yeah.
Hello, it could have been just any old rug in the rug store. You know?
Yeah, and finally, Prince of Mongols, he gets a special apple that allows you to heal someone.
Even raise them from the dead.
Again, just so you guys know, even though these gifts are rare and stuff, these guys don't do squatto to get them.
Yeah, they get the slaves to do it for them.
Yeah.
They didn't even raise a bead of sweat.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he does eventually find the place that he has to go to, a special cave that allows you to find the most rarest of treasures.
And he seeks for all the what do you call booby traps and other good groovy things.
Special places to go to.
Yeah.
I won't go through the details of each of the likely traps and each.
Needless to say,
there's some interesting bits here and there. Like there's a flying winged horse, I think.
A winged horse.
And you get to see them film underwater. I don't know if they really filmed underwater. I couldn't find information about that.
It looked good and it looked realistic. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I thought this is the good. I don't think it was underwater, but it looked like it was underwater.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So anyway, he eventually finds the treasure, and it was hidden underneath a invisible cloak. Does that sound familiar, folks?
Yep.
Anyway,
I tried one of those.
And it's got this special magic powder that allows you to, bam, you get what you want.
You flick them on the ground or whatever, or in the air, and you wish for something and it happens. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, he brings a horse, and then he brings some nice clothes that made him look like a princey.
And lunch.
And he...
Lunch? Or something.
And he heads on back to Baghdad. And meanwhile, all the princes do the same. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the Prince of Mongols has his spy.
You missed something. The princess was poisoned.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to, Mike.
I
was going to say that the Prince of Mongols has his spy, the maidservant, poison her, the princess.
Not kill her.
but
awfully sick.
But made her sick. Anyway, back to the the princes. They through the crystal that the Prince of Indies has, it showed that she was unwell. So they end up jumping onto the magic carpet,
The three of them.
and they all head down to Baghdad quickly.
The guy who had the crystal, and the guy who had the magic carpet, and the guy who had the mystical apple all jumped on the carpet together to go and save the princess and make her well. Yeah. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, they eventually arrive in the nick of time, and the Prince of Mongols uses magic apple and rubs it around her body, and she rises. Safe.
See, an apple a day keeps a doctor away.
That's probably where it came from. Eventually, she sees all these rare gifts, and
she makes a very wise statement.
Yeah, she quite agrees. While each of them says, "This is the rarest thing we found. This one's the rarest. This one's the rarest."
They're useless without each other.
Exactly. Each one would have been useless.
Yeah, the guy who had the magic crystal could see that the princess was ill, but couldn't get to her easily and couldn't cure her. The guy who had the magic carpet could fly there, but he had nothing to cure her with. The guy who had the cure wouldn't have been able to get to the cure because he had no transportation, and he would have known she was sick because he didn't have the crystal. So the three things together, they need each other.
Yeah, so
interesting.
Without one or the other, and the Sultan then declares. But before we get to that, the princess looks into the crystal and sees it is heading back eventually, with all of the treasures that he mentions. And she's thrilled about this, but then she decides that she must buy some more time. So she suggests to the Sultan, her father, to sleep on it and discuss it in the morning.
Our father, dearest.
Okay, and the Prince of Mongols,
he's getting really crappy. I mean, he's waiting 7 moons.
Yes, and he's in a way tries to use this as time to gather his forces to.
Yeah, he'd been getting his troops in secretly.
Secretly under cover of darkness
and pretend to be porters and different things, but actually.
That could be it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. And,
So
yeah.
anyway, back to the
Carry on.
story.
Carry
He
on.
agrees with the Sultan and suggests they sleep on it. Later that night, they evade his forces eventually invade Baghdad and got the Sultan and the princess thrown in the dungeon and planning to have them executed eventually.
And then,
Eventually,
who appears?
well, before we can get there,
Sorry.
eventually, eventually hears from a few merchants who were just traveling by after he settled down to get some water and any essentials on the way. They tell him that Baghdad is being invaded, so he
Yep.
jumps on his horse and rides to
Giddy up,
Baghdad.
horsey, yeah.
Eventually, he does arrive, and then he wishes for millions of army
Well,
troops.
not millions, but a lots of army troops. He kept throwing powder on his magic powder on the ground, and troops were appearing, and he had a lot more troops than the Mongol prince had.
Yeah,
and they battled each other,
Yeah.
and guess who won?
Yeah, some of
Not
the
the Mongol.
some of the Mongol troops panicked and either ran.
Because they saw these guys being conjured up from nothing.
Yeah.
You go, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to
Yeah.
fight a demon. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Meanwhile, the prince of Mongols plans to flee on the magic carpet
That
with
Mongol
the
was
princess.
all mongrel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and and eventually he tries to take her, and luckily enough, Armin, with the magic of the invisible cloak, was able to get inside the castle and was able to save the princess.
Yay!
Eventually, the Mongol prince and his associate, they end up getting what they deserve.
Well, he gets beaten up and gets
Yeah.
sent away. He gets sent home on his horsey.
No, actually, he doesn't. They tie their special what do they call those special sort of their pigtails
Oh,
and
that's
end up
right, yeah,
putting
yeah.
them on
I
a
forgot
very
that.
high flagpole.
Yeah, I forgot that bit. Yeah,
It was
he's on his
hilarious.
horse before. Yeah, yeah.
Eventually, the Sultan and the princes they arrive, and all the royals, and they're all thrilled. And the Sultan finally gives the Ahmed his blessing to marry
even
his
though he
daughter.
wasn't really a prince, he acted princely.
Yes, and
And actually, didn't that happen in the cartoon version with when Aladdin saved everybody?
yeah,
Didn't they say he was granted
yeah.
everything? Of course, he was a good guy. He had a good heart and good motives and everything.
Yeah.
And some of the other movies do the same thing. You are a prince by your actions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So back to this story.
Sorry.
All the royals are thrilled, and then the princess suggests that they should flee because they want to get
They got
some time.
fleas?
No,
Oh, no.
to
Oh,
get
they
some
got-
time
okay.
alone. So they Almond and her sneak away under the invisible cloak and fly out onto
magic
the
carpet.
magic carpet.
See?
Then we close with the wise man telling the final bit of the story and saying happiness has to be earned.
Yes.
The special message in this story, as I mentioned.
In that lovely.
And the end.
Da, 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 rolling credits now. Da, na, 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 na.
Again, as I said before, guys, I love silent films, and Douglas Fairbanks is my favorite silent film actor.
Well, like you said before, he was one of the first action hero type guys.
Yeah, the first one.
And that's what people wanted. I mean, back in those days, who wants to see a drama or slapstick comedy every time we go to the theatre? It was something a bit different.
It is.
And he gave him something different. I mean, he spent a mozza.
Yeah.
A buckler is the most expensive movie ever made. The most expensive film was made in the 1920s. And now it says 1,135,000, yada, yada, yada.
You must have
But
raised
the
a lot of
point,
money.
I don't know if that was their dollars back in the 20s or, a revised sum. But when you think about it, in the 20s, that's a lot of money. That's like maybe $100,000,
yeah,
$80,000.
and so you guys know, this
80 million
movie is
today, yeah.
so this movie is about
Yeah.
2 hours long, which I imagine there was intermission if you were
Well,
going to
they
watch
may
it.
have done an intermission back in those because most of the films back in those days were shorter.
Yeah.
So and they have something like a short movie and a featurette and a cartoon,
Yeah.
and have a break. Like you're in
true.
between the featurette and the cartoon, then the main feature. They might have had to have a break in this, yeah.
Yeah, true.
But anyway,
Anyway, unlike today's movies, where some movies nowadays would either be 2 hours or 1 hour and a half long these days, depending
Well,
on.
the average movies are about 1.5 hours, but the better movies go up towards about 2, and the extremely, really, really good ones go to about 2 to 3 hours.
Or the extremely boring ones.
Well, yeah, no, but if you got a really good action movie, but I mean, look, go back in the olden days, Gone with the Wind, I think, went for about 2.5 to 3 hours. That was a long movie. It's a long sit. There was an intermission in it. Now, you didn't want to have people leaving the theatre, and then you got 15 minutes to go for a pee, get some food, and get back to your seat. All the time.
Can you imagine the line at the toilet? I can.
I need a whiz. Whatever. But nowadays, I mean, you see things like your Star Wars. They're long movies.
Not long enough.
They were. Well, Harry Potter movies, they were long.
Long, but not long
They
enough.
weren't. They were not an hour and a half.
Yeah,
okay?
they were.
They were long. Some of the movies. I mean, actually, the Deathly Hallows was broken up into 2 parts.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so they could have been
So
put together. It would have been a long movie.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the box office wouldn't allow that.
No, it'll make more money that way. No.
Eventually, so as I was saying, guys, I do think silent movies are a wonderful source of stuff to get into and get some not interesting inspiration from.
And a thing really that sticks out is almost 100 years old. You think about the film industry. It's been going for over 100 years. I think it started in the 1800s, the late 1800s. And how far it's come. And you go back, these guys, see, this was done on a soundstage, mainly.
Yeah.
If not all of it. And the point is, there's no CGI. Every special effects trick they used had to be done manually, really manually.
Yeah.
Fire was fire. They might have done a bit of layering or something or other. Apart from that, if there's a fire next to the guy, there's a fire next to the guy.
Yeah, as I said before in the past,
it's dangerous.
when we reviewed Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments and how he did a silent version of the Ten Commandments years back earlier. It's interesting how they were able to create the stuff with only either a limited amount of special effects or limited amount of
they had a bit of layering of the film.
True.
And in that one Cecil B. DeMille, the second one he did things like use a rear projection behind people to get a really good shot, like with the ladies there when the storm clouds where they're playing the Red Sea and stuff. They're using rear projection there. They did special film shots for the part of the Red Sea. They did it in a pool in a car park. And they just did things, turn cameras sideways, whatever, and they merged the films together somehow or other, and it looks like they're actually going through the Red Sea. I mean, crikey. And they didn't have CGI. It was,
Yeah, anyway, I just think it's an awesome take.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys had limited special effects stuff, but they used what they had.
Yeah, and what they had is common sense, imagination, and they cross their fingers, not say, "Hope this works."
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the carpet scenes in this, I do think they look rather incredible.
Well, actually, you look at the carpet scenes and other things like that. Now, some of the things like the flying horse looked a bit average. It looked like transparency and different things, whatever. But crikey, there's no such thing as a flying horse.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
Yeah, if you watched the 1961, they did a flying horse in that one, and I thought the wings attached to the horse looked so real.
They look real, but we know they weren't real. But yeah, it looked great.
I mean, you would think there would be at least something there, like a
bridle or something holding it or something there.
But you don't.
It looks so real. And so that's what these special effects guys, directors, everyone. I got a vision. Let's create it. And they do it. And you go, wow. And I mean, today you've got so many things they use. New
to make
products,
things a little
CGI
easier.
And whatever.
To make life a little easier,
yeah, but
if
back
you
in
will.
those days, it was all hard yakka.
Yeah, back then they had to sit in studios and try to discuss how we're going to do this.
Yeah, I want this to be raining frogs. Let's go get a couple of dozen frogs and throw them at people. Yeah, well, take the birds. Well, this lady, Tippy Hedren, went upstairs in the attic there.
Yeah, they had
and
to
she
use
opened
real
the door,
birds.
And they got real birds, and they're throwing birds at her. you know, she passed out really, and she was scratched and damaged.
And she had to go to a psychiatric clinic
Yeah.
to get over a bird fright.
Yeah, and then she came back on set the next day to do more filming. And you're going, wow, that's what I
Yeah.
call reality.
I gotta admit though, I do like that. Like people like Douglas Fairbanks, what's his name?
Tippy Hedren.
Yeah, I like their dedication. That's what
Yeah,
I like about
exactly right.
about actors. They know how to continue working on a film without giving up.
Yeah.
And seeing as this, that Douglas was doing the producing, he wasn't.
He wasn't going to walk away.
He wasn't walking away.
Hey, all the money he put into it.
Yeah, but meaning he's not going to walk away. I mean, it's nice that he put both a little work into the film too.
He did a lot of work. No, a very talented man.
Yeah, meaning even if the stunt was really dangerous, it allowed him to do it because he wasn't afraid.
But he looked so fit. He looked like it wasn't an effort because he was so fit, strong. He really, he was a very fit man, and he could do it all. Yeah, he'd do the running and climbing and jumping and fighting and whatever.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't bat an eyelid. Take two? I don't think so. He just did it properly the first time around. Don't worry about take two in a lot of instances.
Yeah, so do you want to rate this one now?
Well, I'm almost finished.
Okay. Did they have any reviews on it? I don't know if they did.
No,
back then.
I don't think you're going to find any reviews going back that way, that far back. However, like I said before, it's got a lot of awards, later awards, like best movies, that sort of stuff, and
Best actor?
well, no, just the movie. They save your copy in the that library thing in America. Yeah, yeah, that sort of thing. That's saying they're acknowledging the fact that it was a damn fine movie. But in June 2008, the American Film Institute revealed its top 10 films in American genres, and The Thief of Bagdad was the 9th best film in the fantasy genre. So it actually made it in the top 10. That's
cool.
even in 2008. And Congress,
Blimey.
library that the government has, they've preserved it
That's nice.
because they think it's aesthetically and historically and yada yada yada. They've done all that. So I would say back in those days, people were poor. They didn't have TVs, had a bit of radio. They would have gone to pictures,
Yeah.
the theatre.
I didn't know how much films were back then, obviously.
Well, it would have been cheap. They'd say you don't make a lot of money at the box office back in those days, not like you would now, because people don't have their money, so it was dumbed down to a level that people can afford to go to the theatre.
True.
So what happened is you would have a lot of people maybe saw it, but we don't know what the box office was.
True.
The money I've got here, it says for box office, I think it was more for, that was more home media side of it, because they don't know what did box office there 100 years ago. There's no records.
I see.
Yeah. So I would say a lot of people saw it and enjoyed it, and they came. Yeah.
Even though they didn't reach their box office goal number.
We don't know.
Even to pay off the actors.
No, we don't know. I said I don't know for the third time or fourth time. I don't know because there's no records. I think the figures here are the home media side of it. They don't know what did because there's no records. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyway, irrespective.
Shall we rate it now, because I think
I can't think of anything else. Oh, any of you guys who are wanting to get a copy of this, it's available on Amazon as a rent buy. So you got both choices, and on eBay. And if you look in different countries, you got your own local sort of buying sites, whatever. You probably find them there too. It's still widely available.
Yeah, and if you guys have already watched both 94 version and the 1961 version and haven't watched this one before, I advise definitely check it out, because this is where it all began.
It's always good to go back to the roots occasionally and see where things
if you're
started
an
from.
independent filmmaker or an actor wishing to get into stunt doubling, it's always good to find out how far people go in the industry back then.
And saying that, do not shy away from the fact that it's an old black and white silent movie.
You can get a lot of enjoyment out
There's
of
a
it.
lot of good movies. I mean, this is a good one. Metropolis is another good one for its slang.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. Who? Yes, we have Nosferatu. We have Nosferatu today. No.
Don't worry, he's not.
Mel Brooks movie.
He's watched Mel Brooks.
And also you got the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Top movie.
Yeah,
But these are really old movies.
and the
that people
cabin
forget about.
of
Caligari.
that has an awesome twist. In fact, it has the
Don't
best.
tell them again. We might want to review this.
True. But you got to admit, Mike, that this one kind of dabbled with twist endings, and this has probably inspired a lot of people out there
Like the Alfred Hitchcocks and stuff.
to develop a twist ending to get people to.
The Master of Suspense. And the ending of Caligari, you did not see that ending coming. It was so brilliantly executed.
Yeah.
See, these people had an idea. They just have the technology that we have today to put it together.
Yeah,
So,
and while these guys may be thinking most of those movies deal with symbolism and stuff like that, there's nothing wrong with symbolism.
No. And actually, Caligari was very, what's the word? Not esoteric, weird. There's a word for it. I can't think of the word. It's done on weird. The sets look weird.
I get what you mean, Mike.
Almost, or like an abstract, but there's a word for it.
Surrealism.
Surrealism, yes, surrealism. A very surrealistic type movie. That's right, yeah. And that, because obviously it's supposed to be do with the theme of the movie.
That's what I mean. Most of
mentally deranged people.
yeah, I think that one. I think that if you look back, you might find that one of the surrealisms, there was a filmmaker who dabbled in surrealism and all that stuff.
Who was that? He said knowingly.
I don't remember his name. Sorry, I'm bad with names.
Was Salvador Dali back in those days that bit early for him?
Yeah, I think he was associates with him. So he was probably one of the inspirations of.
So Salvador Dali
was
I wouldn't say crazy man. He was wired a bit differently. He was a very strange man. He would love this sort of stuff.
I gotta admit, it's interesting how long he's been around for. He was
I don't think he's around anymore.
No, but he met Alice Cooper
back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah, and he was an old man then.
And he was an old man, and yet he made his an artwork based with Alice Cooper.
The three-dimensional one.
Yeah, it was a three-dimensional one.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how far Salvador Dali came. You know.
Salvador Dali was not afraid to try something new. He did sculpting, he did painting, he did film making. What else did he do?
Oh, a lot of things.
Everything, yeah. So
even advertisement.
Move over, Annie Warhol. Campbell soup, tin, not good enough. No, right?
Anyway, so as I was saying,
I'm going to give this, honestly, in its own genre, I'm going to give it a 10.
I'm going to give it a 10 too, for different reasons, because I do think this movie is worth seeing.
It is. It's good.
And it gives you...
and I'm encouraging you guys to go see it.
It encourages you guys to go outside the box sometimes.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, like I said, sit down there with an open mind and watch it. You say, ooh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see what Douglas Fairbanks is trying to do in this movie.
Yeah, I know that filmmaking has changed over the years, but
it has a lot. Yes,
silent films offer people
but that was a jumping off point.
True. Did you know, guys, that apart from Douglas Fairbanks, the other person who ever did his own stunts would have been George Lazenby in James Bond?
Yeah, that was later on. Yeah, but see, you look at who's that guy I mentioned before? A lot of the guys, Buster Keaton, he did all his own stunts in
mentioned him.
And he did some really dangerous looking stuff there. Yeah.
In other words, guys, check out these silent films, and you may be surprised. You may find something you've never seen before, and you may even find that doing it by scratch could be good for a film.
Yeah, do it the hard way.
And not always the easy way of going directly to special CGI. Just remember, guys, it's always good to go back to old ways of filming.
And have a think about this. Back in those days, there wasn't too much stock footage around. You made your own footage up.
True, true.
Ah.
And I do miss that a lot of people back in the old days, relied on prosthetics and other stuff
Yeah.
to make the film more incredible.
Yeah.
Even if it does look very crummy, but it's still
Well,
creative.
not crummy, just not as good as it does look today. But
Yeah.
they did the best. I mean, look at come on, Lon Chaney. Now you talk about prosthetics. Lon Chaney Senior was, to me, the original king of makeup. He would go to the studios with his little makeup box, say, look, and they said, we're looking for an Indian, a Chinese man, whatever. Who picked the most unlikely one there because there wasn't a Chinaman there, there wasn't an Indian there, whatever, and he'd make himself up to look the part. And they said, okay, you got the role. So he got a lot of roles by making himself look like different nationalities and whatever, or some creepy guy or whatever.
Interesting thought, guys. The thing that when he was doing Phantom of the Opera, he kind of sticks some stuff up his nose.
Yeah, to hold his nose up, and that would have been very painful.
Yeah, bear in mind, he that would have.
Yeah.
I think it caused a nosebleed at one point.
I did, yeah. It hurt him a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the way it is. And I think when he did the Hunchback, I think he had a strap harness wrapped around his body to pull him over, and that would have done his back a lot of damage. but he made it work.
Yeah. So
Taliban.
So again, guys, you can always go beyond your imagination or stretch the boundaries in filmmaking. Not too much, because if it's too much, you could end up hurting someone.
It's like a magician. You know, he knows what he wants the people to see. And then he figures out how he's going to make it happen. And that was the same as the old filmmakers. I know what I want the people to see. How am I going to make it look real?
Yeah, and as Mike would tell you, if it's not in the frame, it doesn't exist.
Yes. Yeah. And if it's in frame and you don't want it, tough. There it is.
Yeah, so I think that's about it, because I'm rambling here and there.
Oh, we like rambling.
So, I hope you guys like this latest movie review. So, I definitely go check out this movie or any other silent movies. I'm not going to tell you which ones.
We might do a few more. Yeah, not week after week, but we might drop one in. We might do Caligari,
and if you can, guys, feel free to comment below. Tell us which of the Thieves of Baghdad that really interests you most. It doesn't have to be this one. It could be the other two I mentioned.
Yeah, the Steve Reeves one isn't too bad.
Yeah, and the 1940s one,
Sabu,
the young kid actor.
Yeah. By the way, any of these reviews we do, any comments we'd like, and if you've got any suggestions on movies that you might like us to review, would be very nice occasionally. Because I've got a library I can just go through, Sarah, keep me going for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But you might want to know all my movies. You want to do. You might want to hear about something that you want to know about, not what we want to tell you.
So, that's about it for tonight, guys. So this is Sarah Stephenson
and Michael
saying we'll see you guys for the next podcast, guys.
Looking forward to it.
Bye for now.
Bye.